Hi, everybody. It's Susie Singer Carter, and I just wanted to take a minute to tell you about a wonderful product I just discovered. It's called Sociavi, and Sociavi in Latin means to share and unite. It is the simplest way for older adults and people with disabilities to connect and engage with their family and friends. There's no username, no password, no login, and no app to choose from. It's just a dedicated device. It's the Sociavi C2M Connect to Me device that's always on and ready to use. And families and caregivers just install the app on their smartphone. And then you can just begin sending photos, videos, and even have live-to-live video chats. And your loved ones, they don't have to do anything. They just love it. And because all of us must fight elder abuse and work together to bring awareness to this issue, Sociavi is supporting my efforts to produce my vital documentary, No Country for Old People. When you subscribe to Sociavi for your loved ones, they will donate the payments received, and you can help us reach our goal while connecting with your loved ones in the simplest way. Sociavi, connecting generations made simple globally. To learn more, please visit their website at www.sociavi.com. And when choosing the payments, select the annual subscription. The proceeds will go to help the production of our documentary, No Country for Old People, and I thank you so much.
When the world has got you down and
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alls, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here are your hosts, Susie Singer Carter and me, Don Priess.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susie Singer Carter.
And I'm Don Priess, and this is Love Conquers Alls. Hello, Susan.
Donald, you sound like a million miles away. Where are you?
Well, it's interesting. If anyone's paid attention to any of our episodes up till now, we are both kind of in different worlds. We're kind of like in a parallel universe, because you're not sitting where you used to be sitting, and I'm not sitting where I used to be sitting. And we had made some changes in our venues.
Interesting?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've moved from where I am currently working into an office that's not here. It's actually right next to you, isn't it?
It is. Because of the documentary, folks, we've moved into the same office in the loft where my office normally is, and so that we can edit together and kill each other.
That's right. We're
with each other.
We're closer, so she can, when she reaches out to hit me, she can actually reach out and hit me now. So it's perfect. I'm not right now. I'm in a different room.
Watch this. Watch this. Watch. See that?
Yeah.
That's
this is entertainment.
Movie magic right there.
Boy, this is fantastic.
We're here. It's Love Conquers Alls, and love will conquer this.
Indeed.
It'll hiccup for a while, but it's all for a good cause, because we're editing. We're in the editing process of No Country for Old People, which is our documentary that we're still raising money for. What? Did I mention that again?
That's shocking.
Well, we have a GoFundMe, which you're welcome to share with your network and with your friends and family, as we're still raising money to finish the film. And there is, of course, the link and the QR code in our show notes. But today, we're not going to talk about that too much, because we got a really terrific guest that I am excited to have, and I know you are, Don.
I absolutely am.
I'll let you introduce Lance. It's Lance A. Slatton, who is of
correct.
All Home Care Matters, which Don will introduce formally. But I just want to say that we're really excited and, proud to have him here as a guest. And we were able to meet Lance and his team when we were guests. Rick Montcastle and I were guests on his show back in April. And they're just a terrific presence in our community, and so we're really excited to have him with us here on our podcast. So, Don, why don't you introduce our illustrious guest?
Without further ado, is that what you're saying?
Without further ado or a don't.
Exactly. Well, here we go. Lance A. Slatton is redefining caregiving through his companies Enriched Life Home Care Services and All Home Care Matters. As founder and senior case manager, he identified a lack of resources for caregivers, and now his award-winning home care company has been Michigan's top-rated service for the past 5 years. But Lance did not stop there. His ingenuity led to the creation of his podcast and YouTube show, All Home Care Matters. Reaching over 12 million viewers globally, the platform serves as a beacon of support to communities worldwide. As a contributor to McKnight's Home Care News, Lance's articles explore diverse topics from the state of Medicare to innovations in senior care technology to caring for the caregiver, and so much more. Lance's tireless dedication and far-reaching impact demonstrate that he is a leader not just for today, but for many years to come in the caregiving sector. And with that, let's welcome the oh-so-busy Lance A. Slatton. Hello, Lance.
Hello, Don. Thank you so much. Susie, always good to see you.
It's wonderful to see you. I mean, oh my gosh, you are so busy. Like, so busy. I don't know how you manage it. Like, you have, 20 balls in the air, and yet you're very calm and cool. And your demeanor just comes off so comforting. Which is why you probably are so perfect in this industry, because you bring comfort just by who you are.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I am a little busy. I do get asked quite a bit. Aside from being the host of All Home Care Matters, I'm a senior case manager for our family's home care company. We actually service the bottom half of Michigan. And then I have 3 wonderful children, and one of them, I'm their soccer coach, and I'm on a senior center board of directors for one of our local cities and the school board.
Amazing. Seriously, like, you need to do a podcast on how to manage your time and to get that all. I mean, it's very, very impressive. I met you because you reached out to me and said, we love what you're doing and we want to support you, and which you have. And so we're very grateful for that. And likewise, I want to support you, which is, very much in line with what I have been doing, whether it's been in a podcast or it's been walking the walks, out with the public with Alzheimer's Association and Alzheimer's Los Angeles, Us Against Alzheimer's. I have really leaned into the caregiving community, and it has grown exponentially since I started, hasn't it?
It absolutely has. And, to follow up on that, Susie, the work that you and Rick and Don are doing for, No Country for Old People, this is something that we say all the time when we're helping to share posts or, have you on or Rick on. This is something that needs to be shared. This is something that is going to affect and touch every family everywhere at some point. And don't sit there and think, well, my mom's healthy or I'm healthy or my spouse is healthy, whatever it may be. We're all healthy until we're not. And, these families need to be aware of the realities of what happens when their loved ones are faced with long-term care illnesses or having to go into long-term care facilities.
It's true. And the challenges are they're monumental. They really are. The infrastructure is just not there. And whether you're in, long-term care or assisted living or even home care for what you, do, the infrastructure, as best as even in the best case scenario, is still lacking, for the kind of quality of life that we expect and deserve.
Absolutely.
To have. So,
Absolutely.
And that's why what you're doing is so super important as well. So I want to get a little personal because I want to know what brought you to this. It has to be a story. So what brought you to this focus in your life?
Absolutely. So years ago, my grandparents lived in the South, and my family and I, we lived up here in Michigan. And I would spend my summers with my grandparents growing up because, you only get weekends, and that's not a lot of time to go down south to see and visit, and occasionally we would get holidays and things if things worked out. And I became extremely close with my grandparents, and as I grew older, my grandparents get, sick, they develop, illnesses. And, my grandfather passed. And then my grandmother is now living alone. And being old school Southern mentality, she never got a driver's license, never worked outside of the home, but she worked in the home. She raised 6 children and also ran a Christian orphanage and adopted 2 children. They were the prime example for how I would want to live my life or how I would want my family's life to be an example of. And my grandmother would wake up in the evenings or in the morning, and she would call the local police. And being up here in Michigan, I tell people all the time, you can have a phone call with a loved one and think everything's fine, but it's really once you get below the surface when you really start to notice there's issues, right? And so finally, after the 3rd or 4th time of calling the police, they contacted the family down there that was living there. They contacted my mother and said, Mom is not doing well. She's waking up, calling the police, thinking there's these massive parties going on in the home, and there's nobody there. So she came to live with us for the last years of her life, and ultimately it got to the point where she had to be in a nursing home. That really had a profound impact on me, and I had dedicated my life and career and education to healthcare. I was en route to go into medical school, and my wife and I now, fast forward, we get a call, my father is not doing well. And the home health nurse basically said he can't live on his own. He came to live with us, and he needed 24-hour care that my wife and I were providing. No outside help. And aside from the nurses that would come once or twice a week for a short visit, we're going through this journey for 2+ years, a very intensive journey. And never once had anybody ever shared with us, have you thought about getting home care? Have you thought about getting some respite? We're in our early 20s. My wife graduated, started her career. I'm pursuing medical school. Our hands are full. And again, just like for most families, you don't know what you don't know. When that time comes, you don't know, okay, there's home care. There's, the area agency on aging, all these different resources available. And it made me a little upset once I realized that there were all these resources in this whole world out there. I knew more hospital, healthcare, medicine, not all these social support services, and nobody ever shared them with us. And so we kind of talked about finding a way to help families that were going through what we went through. Because if we went through it, there's got to be countless others, not knowing there's a whole industry of home care out there. And so I thought I invented the wheel by suggesting, hey, let's find people that can go in and help these families. And so our family decided to start our company, and our company's been in business now almost 12 years. And something we're very proud of is the last 5 years, we've been the #1 rated company in Michigan. And I don't say that to, puff my chest out or to be braggadocious in any way. I say that because we're rooted in the values and the principles of a family, not as a corporation where, the most important thing is just the bottom line. The most important thing to us is these families are getting the support and their loved ones are getting the care that we all deserve when the time comes that we need care. So part of that was, for the last 12 years or so, minus COVID, we would go out to communities. We were hosting caregiver support groups. We were doing long-term care resource seminars. We had 2 semi-trailers packed full, wall to wall, with cases of unopened depends, walkers, shower chairs, wheelchairs, power chairs, hospital beds. And all these families that were at these events, if they couldn't afford it, or maybe they didn't even qualify for Medicare, we would loan this equipment out to them just to help them in their time of need. And then minus the supplies you don't want back after they're used, walkers and shower chairs, they would give them back to us so then we can help another family. So COVID hits us, and we're seeing the writing on the wall. Senior centers, nursing homes, churches, all these public gatherings and spaces are closing. And so we were like, how can we continue helping people? What can we do to still reach these people who are so in need? And if, like you guys, for us, our governor, we're going to be shut down for 2 weeks. We're going to be shut down for 3 weeks, and that turned into 2-3 years. But we just started All Home Care Matters just as a temporary gap to fill while we're waiting for things to open back up, and now it's turned into a whole thing on its own. And, we're just always looking for more ways that we can help reach families and educate them and support them.
It's incredible. And so just on a business side, is it nonprofit or is it for profit? Like how do you launch something like that, where you are actually getting all this equipment and, things that to help?
Yeah. So I've had so many people tell us over the years, you need to be a nonprofit. We're not a nonprofit, Susie, but we operate in the sense of a nonprofit. When our staff go into a home, same as it would be with a nonprofit, they're expecting to get paid for their work. But if we're going in and doing support groups or loaning out equipment or supplies, we're not expecting anything in return other than knowing we've helped somebody. And because of that, all these facilities and senior centers in different places around Michigan, they know who we are. They know we're not going to take this brand new, power chair and put it on eBay or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. They know who we are because we've established that reputation that it's going to get to the people that really need it, not the ones that don't. So it gets all donated to us, and then we turn around and donate it out to the families.
It's wonderful.
Wow.
It's really a model that, is unfortunately not prevalent, and so that's the sad part is like people,
Right.
Organizations like your organization, All Home Care Matters, is far and few between. So, I have people reach out to me and this is not, I don't do what you do. I bring Don and I bring conversation to the table because we, like you, have lived this, and I lived it for 16 years with my mom being her point person, her person, and her being my favorite person in the world, and realizing that other people like you, same mentality, must be going through the same thing that I'm going through, and just don't have not either had the platform to ask for help, or didn't know how to ask for help, or was playing whack-a-mole like I was doing, and not having the bandwidth to get the help they needed. So what we're doing is really keeping the conversation going with Love Conquers All, and then trying to keep it as positive as possible, trying to find the silver lining in everything, because when you're in it, how dark it can get.
Right.
And that doesn't do anybody any good. It
Right.
doesn't do anybody any good to get dark. It can get dark, and it can get frustrating and depressing, and but what is the alternative?
Absolutely.
Right? So we need to keep it, like what you're doing is so beautiful, because you're out there doing, I'm talking about it. I'm opening up the conversation with Don, and you are who we are directing our audience to, if that makes sense, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, we like to tell families, if we can't help you, we don't want to hurt you.
Right.
If you need help, we're going to find a way we can help you. It may not be with having our staff in your home. It may not be through supplies, but it might be directing you to the type of help that will support you and help you in your time of need. And far too often, Susie, families are taken advantage of, based on their, blissful ignorance. And I don't mean ignorance in a negative sense, but my favorite thing is you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
We didn't know we could get support for my father, but nobody told us either,
Right.
And so many of these families, they're just, they're either still raising children, grandchildren, and now they have a parent they're trying to support. They're trying to do the best they can. We don't need to hinder that. We need to help support that.
Right. Like we're the sandwich generation, on steroids now, because we're all living longer, which is wonderful, but we're like the Dagwood sandwich of generations, because we're multi-generational, right? So
Absolutely.
Let me ask you a hard question. Don, you can just butt in any time. I'll just keep talking, as you know.
Actually, I don't think I can.
Okay.
I don't think I physically can.
But just sort of circling back to what I said a couple minutes ago, was that this our caregiving industry has exploded. And I saw it, because when I started really, after my stepdad died about eight years ago, it was 2011.
Longer than that.
That was way over 8 years ago. What am I
12
talking
years
about?
ago, yeah.
Anyway, that was when the year my mom moved in with me because she was experiencing Groundhog's Day when you do with Alzheimer's, right? And so, and when I did my film, My Mom and the Girl, that was really the beginning of the conversations that we continue to have now. And when we did that, when we started Even Love Conquers All, which was 2019, there was not that many resources. There just wasn't. There were resources, but not like there are now. Right. But with that with the abundance of resource also brings a little bit of greed, for lack of a better word. And there are now a lot of resources, but it's also there's so many. How do we find out who are the good ones and who are the bad ones, who are out there just for the greed, just to cash in on the 53 million caregivers? That is the number we hear ad nauseum. In fear in the community, we hear, well, there's 53 million caregivers out there. And, just to go back to a pilot that Don and I wrote for Fox called Silver Linings, and, we kind of predicted this 10 years ago when we wrote it for Fox. Right. And it was about this young woman who was in her 30s who was an ageophobe, total ageist, but saw dollar signs in older people's eyes. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And, her arc was falling in love with the older people and finding out that they were actually worthwhile. But it was comedy, obviously, but with a, message. Sure. But the point is that has come to what I've noticed. And wow, if I was in the throes of it now and I was playing whack-a-mole like I was last year, it is so difficult to decipher who are the good people and who are not. And, how are you dealing with that? And how are you working with your clients and trying to steer them in the right direction? And do you agree with me? Maybe you don't agree with me.
I fully agree with you.
Okay.
It's going to be kind of a two-part answer. We might take a little bit of a rabbit trail, but two things first popped into mind as you're describing that. About 8 years ago, we gave a big presentation to the UAW headquarters in downtown Detroit. Motor City, the UAW president was there, and we gave this wonderful presentation just explaining exactly what people are entitled to about Medicare, what they can get, what they can't get, just so they knew what to expect, because these are retirees, and they're going to be going into that phase either with their parents or themselves. And one of the gentlemen came up to us at the end and he said, I need to talk to you guys. His mother was 98 years old, lived in one of these big, historic, beautiful homes in downtown Detroit that her and her husband moved there in the 40s, I guess, and raised him and his sister and all their family. She's in a nursing home. She had a hip replacement. The nursing home would not let her go home unless she had a hospital bed. They weren't even interested in hiring us. That wasn't the point. He's saying, we have to pay $4,800 to buy her a hospital bed. And conveniently, they had to buy it through the nursing home, who happened to own a medical supply and equipment wing.
Go no.
Surprise.
So, right. But he did not know any better, and nor should he know any better. So we're explaining to him, go talk to your mom's primary care physician. Don't talk to the physician at the nursing home. Explain the situation. Get an order for a hospital bed. Her Medicare will help cover that hospital bed for you. And it just blew him away. He was looking at us kind of, a little suspect. And we have nothing to gain by this. Just let's say he says no and you got to get from the nursing home. Hey, worst case scenario, you're buying it anyways. Best case scenario is we're right and we're saving you and your mother a lot of money. That man called us. This was like on a Thursday. He called us Friday evening and he was in tears, literally grown man crying in tears. And A, he couldn't understand why the nursing home would try to take advantage of them. B, why didn't the social worker or the discharge planner ever even explain to us, hey, we'll go through Medicare? And he tore the check up and gave it to the nurse or the discharge planner at the nursing home and just was disgusted.
Right.
But there are people, even nursing homes, hospitals, home care companies, everybody, unfortunately, has to be very aware of what you are able to get, what you're not able to get, and what resources are available to you. The second one, Susie, is, and I don't know if this company may have reached out to you, and I won't publicly shame them by saying their name, but we had a few months ago, we had a Alzheimer's company, I use that term loosely, reach out to us wanting to be on All Home Care Matters. And they were offering us a significant amount of money to do like a half an hour preview or, infomercial with them. And we look them up and they are selling a cure to Alzheimer's. Uh-huh. And on their website, let's say Don, saw it and he goes to their website, $7,900 is the cheapest item you can buy. And it's like a 2-week supplement. Well, now let's say you need a month or 6 months. And, we just very politely said, our reputation, our integrity won't allow us to work with you. And really, you should be shameful even trying to give people this kind of false premise that you have a cure to Alzheimer's. And my other thought, and we didn't say this, was if you really had the cure, you wouldn't need to come on our show. Exactly. You would be on the front of every newspaper in the world,
Exactly.
But to answer your question, if it's medical advice, talk to your primary care doctor. They're going to give you good, sound advice. If it's for equipment, contact your ombudsman for Medicare. Talk to them about your resources. It's called DMEs, durable medical equipment. There's a lot of things that Medicare will help cover the cost for. And if you have a question or you're not so sure, do your homework, do your research. Like you said, you did some reconnaissance for our talk today. Do your research, look these people up. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right. I mean, I didn't have that company, thank God, reach us, but, but I'd have a lot of our audience say to me, Susie, have you heard about this? Have you heard about that? Well, you should have them as a guest on your show, yada, yada. And I'll say, and it's heartbreaking to me because they feel there's false hope is out there. There's a lot of false hope. And so, and I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news saying to them, listen, if this were true, because I work very closely with the Alzheimer's Association, Alzheimer's, Los Angeles here in Los Angeles and also Us Against Alzheimer's in the DC. I mean, all of these organizations would know about these products and these things far before I would, and far before anyone else would. So if these are it's charlatans really is what's going on, and even beyond that, like for instance, you and I want to get to Dementia TLC and all of your other, you've got some partnerships out there that you are endorsing and becoming a part of, which is wonderful. A lot of them actually, but for all the ones that you're working with, there's now thousands of others, and the information is there's a glut of information out there. A lot of it is repurposed, and a lot of it is people. I don't know if they're trying to cash in on the 53 million. I don't know why we're getting into this conversation, but I feel like because you're so involved with it, and like I feel like it's important for someone like you that is very prolific. I mean, we just have one podcast, and this is our baby. We don't do it for money, really. We do this because we want to keep a positive conversation and bring our wacky silliness, whatever we can, and make people smile at the same time while they're going through a shitty time, for lack of a better word. And so we just, that's why we do it. But you are actually offering a service, which is different than what we're doing. And how can, Susie or Don or, the millions of other people out there that are going through things like this, how do we get through all the noise? There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of organizations. There's a lot of you've got the caregiving.com. You've got Whole Care Network. And these are all people that I love. But I'm saying, how do we? There's so many. There's only so much time. How?
And you're also inundated with social media. Yeah, you're inundated with social media posts.
Yeah.
So your information is coming at you continuously. How do you get through it and know what's what?
For me, and this is just my opinion, I think you go with brands that you trust, people that you trust, but also find the ones that really resonate with you. Like with our show, Susie, we don't specialize just in dementia or Alzheimer's, but we cover it and we include it. We're trying to reach people, dealing, like we had a mother last year, she shared the story of her disabled son
Right.
that grew up never even knowing he had any sort of disability or he was any different. And she didn't tell him till he was in his early 20s. And, as a parent and as a son, I'm thinking, how would I want to get it? As a child, would I want to know? And as a parent, would I want to tell them? So we try to cover topics that are just in long-term care in general, without a specialty in just one area. But as far as for, your audience, or if like your example, I would go with what really resonates with you, like the sisters doing Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver. Their spin is a little bit different than like our spin. They're just kind of putting it all out there, their personal experiences, and it's not sugar-coated, which is what kind of drew me to their show, because so many times on social media, everything is sunshine and rainbows, or it's all doom and gloom.
Right.
In caregiving, it's a little bit of both. And you got to take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. But I still feel at the end of the day, it's more good than bad. I think people just have to decide, what ones they feel most resonated towards, and also making sure that you're not hearing crazy stuff. Like, I probably wouldn't be, here with the privilege of speaking with you and Don if we were talking about, we got a company here, they got the cure to Alzheimer's. You would think we're crazy,
Right.
And you would not want to introduce your audience to that. That's the same approach we take,
Right.
We're trying, we want leading experts, people that are of sound mind, a sound message, and sound integrity,
Amen. No, it's true. And there's just I find it daunting myself, being in this industry. So I find it daunting and saying, wow, every time I go to social media, there's 10 new profiles on dementia alone. And I think, what new information are they bringing, and why are they there? What's everybody's reason for being there? I know what my reason is, and I'm just curious. This is no, I'm not throwing shade or anything. I'm just trying to see, like, if this were 10 years ago and I was in the thick of it, where would I go? And I wonder if my audience feels the same, and
I think so. Well, I guess I would look at it like, let's say Susie's 10 years ago and there was another Susie doing Love Conquers Alls. Susie 10 years ago would probably be drawn to that because you're talking about your experience caring for your mom.
Right.
So Susie 10 years ago would resonate and could identify with that.
Right. No, it's true. I mean, and then, I'm just, I could go on for days about this, but let's talk about you. And let's talk about all your incredible collaborations that you're doing right now, which I don't know how you're doing it, but I'm open to learning because I love what you're doing. Not that we're not busy enough with our documentary, which has really been, keeping us. It's a beast of a project. That's all I'll tell you, is it's a beast.
Probably takes more. It probably is more involved than everything we're doing.
Oh my gosh, it is.
It's
I mean,
so
I love a
deep.
good
It's
challenge.
so deep, it's unbelievable. We didn't. I mean, even though we've been aggregating, the interviews and the information, everything, and every day something new comes in that can change the course of telling that story.
Well, making a film is fluid. It's a fluid
it's mind-blowing.
process, right? Yeah.
So I'm in awe of you guys.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, then it's mutual. But I think it's great to have you guys out there. You in particular, Lance, you're the face of it, because it gives me a sense of comfort that when you start to connect with another group, I think, well, good, you're going to bring your values to that group. And I hope that, I think, well, because I felt for a while there, I was like thinking I'm Superwoman. I'm going to gonna be the myth buster for everything out there, everything dementia. I can't. I'm just one little girl, and I.
You know what? Those.
Go on.
Susie, you're small but mighty.
Thank you. Well, thank you. But while I'm in the midst of this documentary, which is real, like Don said, it is a rabbit hole. And it is a fluid process, and I aim not to leave any stone unturned. So just as when I think we've got everything that we could even imagine and we need, something comes along and we go, oh, God darn it, we have to incorporate this. It's too important. So
I'm sure you experience the same thing, because there is new information every day in all areas of caregiving. And
every day.
It's every day.
Absolutely.
And that's probably what led you to the various,
Yes.
to starting All Home Care Matters and McKnight and all those things, because there's so many different ways you need to disseminate this information.
Yeah. And, I'll just follow up. I mean, my passion is writing. I shared with you guys in, our pre-call, we didn't start All Home Care Matters really to be an ongoing forever thing. We started it because of COVID and these facilities and centers and, everything just kind of closing their doors. And it was a temporary thing because I just enjoy helping. And so, people say, well, like, Susie, how do you do all of it? For me, it's not really work, kind of like for you guys. I just enjoy doing it. So it's not like I'm dreading it or, I begrudge it or I'm miserable doing it. It's just very naturally easy to do when you enjoy it and you love doing it. And you're just hoping you're reaching that one person who needs to hear that one thing on that one day. And we get emails like that. And it's like, okay, mission accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't get another email, so that's what I take great pride in. So, yeah.
No, ditto. I get it. It's like when we did My Mom and the Girl, that about my mom, which was not a documentary, it was a film. And people kept saying the story is too good, you have to do a film on it. And I was like, just what people need, another film on Alzheimer's, because there isn't enough films on Alzheimer's. And then, I started seeing the value in this little story that came from my mom that was so profound. And I thought, well, maybe, why not? Let's do it. And to this day, I just got an email yesterday from some people that I respect so much that are altruistic people in our industry who are quietly bringing so much resource to people in the background, like amazing people who said, we just watched your film and cried our eyes out, laughed and cried. And what better reward is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
6 years, 7 years later, and to continue to touch people. And this little love story, really, which is how I want to do the documentary, is a love story. It's a love story to my mom and to everyone else who's going through this right now. So
Absolutely.
I think love is the powerful thing, and that, whether you're loving what you're doing or loving the people that you're doing it with, and if you're lucky enough, both, like me, then it is a win-win, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why we connect really well. Go on, Don.
And I think that
I'll let you talk.
No, I think that I did want to sure my voice still worked. I think that the arena is so huge that sometimes you get overwhelmed. You go, oh my God, how can we really make a difference? And something similar to what you said, you get an email. If you changed one person's life, if you made one person's life even better for an hour, or saved a life, or that's worth all of it. And we have to realize that because sometimes you might think, oh my God, it's futile. It's too big. But I think that all of us, and coming from what you're doing, what we're doing, what some other people are doing, these great things, is to look at it that way. It's that, we're chipping away a little bit. We're not going to solve it all at once. There is no solution per se, but there's ways to just make it better.
To navigate it. Well, it's the starfish story. It's one starfish at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's what it is.
Absolutely.
And it's so simple. It's so, really, at the end of the day, it's simple. What my mom used to say was that, what's the alternative? I'd go, Mommy, how are you? This was in the middle of the depths of Alzheimer's. I'd come and see her. Good morning, Mommy, how are you today? She'd go, I'm great. I'm alive, and the alternative sucks. And because she really did love life. And she loved people. Right. She didn't suffer fools, but she definitely loved the people. She had such a good barometer for good people. And she was able to bring the best out of people. And I just thought, wow, look at her in her Alzheimer's, in the throes of Alzheimer's, and yet she's still finding a way to love life. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's the lesson that we all need to learn, because life is not easy no matter what. Like you talking about your story with someone whose son had a disability, born with it. Life it's not fair. It's equal opportunity unfairness.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so we need to figure out how to enjoy this gift that we're given, which is the breath that we breathe, until we can't breathe it anymore. Absolutely. And that's the key to me, and that's what motivates me every day, is to disseminate that point of view that I did not originate, but I inherited it.
Right.
And so,
yes.
and I think it's important. I think that's what it's all about. We're here for a very short time, and everything else around us is borrowed. But what we have is our hearts that last forever. That's the thing. That's what we have, is the love, and that's the big driving force. So, tell us about Dementia TLC, because I love to talk about dementia, and now you're partnering up with Dementia TLC, yet another thing that Lance and his team are doing.
So, about 2 months ago, we're actually, this will be a first. We haven't announced anything yet. We were given the opportunity to take over Dementia TLC because the founder, Leah Waller, is a practicing attorney or lawyer over in the UK. And she started it just out of a passion to help others, like how so many of these great projects do start. And we had talked with her, and, something that meant a lot to me personally is because she appreciated and respected our values and our integrity, she had opportunity to actually sell this to some companies, and she turned them down. And All Home Care Matters is something she really admires, and she said, I'd be willing to give it over to you. So we've taken over her domain. It's dementiatlc.co.uk. So if you go there, it just reroutes you to All Home Care Matters. But then we've also built out an entire massive resource section of Dementia TLC on All Home Care Matters' website. And it's pretty much the genesis and the revelation of dementia, from everything you need from the start to the end. And we're just excited because what we're planning to do now, Susie, and I'll make the offer to you here while we're talking, anybody that has projects, works, articles that they want to contribute, and they get full credit to it, of course, we're going to have that as part of Dementia TLC, brought to you by All Home Care Matters, to just continue to try to get the word out to people and share these resources. So we were very honored to have this, opportunity to take over this really respected and renowned brand.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, and thank you actually very much. I mean, we actually did an interview with another podcast advocate in the UK, Pippa Kelly. I don't know if you know Pippa, but if you don't,
I know Pippa. I don't know her personally, but I know of her.
You should know of her. You should have her. She is an amazing. First of all, she's an incredible journalist. And it's probably the best interview I've ever had, sans yours. But I mean, it was really, she really approached it like such an incredible journalist, and she knew everything about my history. It was uncanny. And I actually, after listening to it back, and I don't listen to my interviews very often, but for some reason I did, and I literally forwarded it to my daughters and said, well, this is your mother's legacy. Just listen to this interview. If you ever want to know my legacy, this is it. Because she had framed it so well and just really told the story of Susie and in terms of dementia and Alzheimer's, but really
Yeah.
who I am and what I represent and what I've brought to the industry. And it was so beautiful because she acknowledged stuff that I had forgotten that I had ever even did. And her passion for my film was over the top. Like, it was just amazing. And I think her passion for the dementia realm and for Alzheimer's is incredible. You should definitely, Pippa, if you're listening, you know I love you, and she will. You should definitely connect up with her in terms of dementia TLC, because
Absolutely.
she is just a plethora of classy resource. I mean, she is a class act. Wouldn't you say,
Wonderful.
Don?
Yeah, we'd love to.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems right, right down the, right in your ballpark. I wanted to go back a little bit and talk about, because where do you get your resources for? Where did you find, when you first started, you said, I didn't know anything about it. How did you go from 5 years ago not knowing anything about it to now where you are now and exploding and doing these amazing things? Where do you find your resources from?
Lots of classes, reading a lot of books. I mean, this is going back now, Don, 21 years maybe, 22, about 21 years, 20 to be safe. Lots and lots of books. My wife jokes with people. She says, he's so exciting. He reads Medicare books for fun, and a lot of gerontology courses at college, hospice, palliative. But, again, I was already, in the medical school route, so it wasn't too far off the path. But, medicine is more about, the physiology and cells and, biology, where this is more gerontology, what happens when people get to a certain age of 65 or older, in learning and researching all the resources and everything that is available to families, so that if I ever come into contact who was in a situation like I was, 20 plus years ago, they'll have an answer. I'll give them those resources. We just started back up our dementia conferences that we do all over, where it's a year-long program. It's once a month, totally free. We don't charge anybody. And we have books for each topic. So like this past month, it was called Making Sense of Dementia. Next month is going to be the Dementia Caregiver Toolbox. And we come in and, the books are about 20, 30 pages. And then we set up tables with all these different hands-on resources that people can get, and we'll tell them where they can get them at, books that we recommend. The 36-hour day is a tremendous, tremendous resource and book. But for some families, it's a little over their head because it is more, scientific and medically inclined. One of the books I'm a big fan of, I had to actually read it during one of my courses. It was My Name is Hannibal Hughes Shanks. And this lady and her husband, they're kind of pioneers. And this goes back to the late 70s, early 80s, where her husband started showing signs of memory loss. Well, the doctors just wrote it off as being senile still at that point. And she kind of wrote the biography about how she still kept her husband in her home, the accommodations she had to make. It was really from the time the diagnosis till his passing. And she became kind of an icon in the world of dementia, but it was before the advent of social media and internet. So not as many people are aware of her. But she would go and speak at different conferences, and just a remarkable book that in my caregiver support groups that we facilitate, we recommend everybody read it. It's an easy, quick read, but these people are trying to figure out how do we do the day-to-day stuff, not what medicine to take necessarily or what tests we should have, but how do I best take care of my husband or my wife or my parent? And this lady wrote a remarkable roadmap for doing so.
It's wonderful. No, I love it. I think, not to push our own project, but it's sort of like with My Mom and the Girl, which is our movie, I will do this because I've been asked to do this. I just haven't had the time to do it, but it really does identify almost every challenge a caregiver or someone who has a loved one that is experiencing those stages, the earlier stages of which I call crossing over the bridge. It's, when they're in fight flight because they know they have it but don't want to admit it. I'm not sick. how dare you, that kind of a thing. And this is the part of the disease which is the hardest, I think. And I love talking about it because I stumbled through it. And my movie really shows those stages of how I leaned into it and embraced it, and that's how I found the joy. And that's how I allowed my mom to have her joy. Instead of correcting her or admonishing her for having behavior that may on the outside seem wrong, bad, mean. It's not, it's the disease.
Right.
And so if we can
Absolutely.
get around that and realize that that's the disease talking, it's as if someone had too much to drink. I'm not talking about an alcoholic, but someone who might
Right.
be a little tipsy and say something that's a little off. It's because of something else. That's not who they are.
Exactly.
And so,
Yeah.
but I made every mistake in the book, and I tell that all the time on my podcast. There isn't a mistake I didn't make. I used to take, Mommy, what day is it? You know the day, where do you live? I would go through everything because I thought I was going to teach her out of it. I was going
Right.
to, I was going to be, no one else could cure it, but I was going to, Mom and I were so close. We got this. I would tell her every day, you have, what do you have, Mom? I have Alzheimer's. Like that was going to change anything, all it did was, it was a source of pain for her. Right. But she loved me so much that she trusted me. Yeah. So that's why I think, like what you said, this book that you've just mentioned, books like that are stories, movies, films, are storytelling. It's just a powerful tool.
Yes.
It's a powerful
Absolutely.
tool because it reminds us that we're not alone. We can see it, we can visualize it, we can hear it, and so we realize, oh my gosh, we're just a part of another community. It's just a community we didn't know we were going to be a part of.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I love what you're
Absolutely.
doing. I love that. I think it's actually more important than anything is to know that you're not alone and to know that what you're doing is probably exactly what you should be doing. And I have a lot of our audience and friends will tell me, oh my God, thank you for telling us that, because we thought we were going crazy, or I was, I feel awful because my mom told me, I wish you were never born. Well, that's not your mom talking. That's the disease talking. And if you asked her in a lucid moment, she probably would break into tears like my mom would do.
Right.
So, I mean, those are the things that we like to talk about.
And you talk about a lot of that on McKnight Home Care News. You write articles that employ some of this, this practical information, because you can get all the medical information you want, but the practicality of it,
Right.
where people can use it in everyday life.
Yeah.
When did that start? And
Absolutely.
where do you come up with those subjects? And is it based on what people ask you, or is it? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's a little bit of both, Don. We do a column for them once a month, and it's really geared towards the long-term care industry, so more towards professionals. And, like the one we just did this month was about, the future of Medicare and long-term care. Because being in home care, we come into contact with countless families. And as you guys may or may not know, Medicare and health insurance doesn't pay for home care. And the best place for anybody, as long as it's safe and it's practical and possible, is to be in their home when they have dementia. Because if they've been in that same home for 40 years, they still have that portion of those memories in their long-term memory part of their brain. Mm-hmm. You take them out of that home, put them in a strange facility, they're not going to get the quality of care, as Susie sure well knows, and they're never going to get that sense of comfort and safety, because it's just like the way that dementia works. It's not going to go from that short-term feeling, okay, I'm safe here, Mom, you're fine, you're going to be okay. It will never have the chance to transform and pass over to the long-term portion. So now it's going to be that same thing every day, that fear, that fright, the confusion, feeling lost.
I want to go
not
home.
knowing where I am. I want to go home. Mm-hmm. So I try to touch on topics that, are really relevant today, and also things that may not be getting discussed as much as they should. I'm a big proponent that I think we need to find a way. I don't know the answer. I don't pretend to know the answer, But I think we need to find a way, especially with our baby boomers, like Susie's alluded to, 53 million, right? That's a lot of people. Our facilities as they stand in America, I don't believe they can support all these baby boomers having residents in them. You know, and I use COVID as a prime example where, you know, a lot of our communities and states, they were all enacting these emergency, you know, MASH units almost, these hospitals and parking lots and taking over community centers and putting in beds, makeshift hospitals. That was in ships in New York, yes. So that was for COVID. And the COVID numbers, you know, whether they are anticipating the numbers to be greater than the baby boomer population, that I don't know. But if we have to do that for COVID, what are we going to have to do when all these baby boomers need to maybe be in a nursing home or a long-term care facility
for years?
We could take care of them in their own home. It's going to be cost effective. I feel like they will maintain their health at a higher level. I even tell families when they have a loved one with dementia, you may look at it and say, oh my gosh, you know, mom, dad, their memory. I said, but they're going to function at a higher level and maintain their health for longer by being in this home than if you take them out now and all of a sudden they're waking up in a strange facility. You will see a decline and they may not recover from that.
100%. 100%. If I could do over again, I would have kept my mom. I would have fought to keep her in my home because that's when she was thriving. When she lived with me, her life was good. She loved it. She was enjoying herself. And people were enjoying her still. Right. And the minute my hand was forced, that's when everything went downhill, 100%. Because that is not going to imprint where you're at. It's just not. And even living with me, that was hard. She kept wondering, where's her home? And I had signs everywhere. Your home. This is your home. You live here with me and your granddaughter and the puppies and your favorite daughter because I'm the only daughter. You know, and a lot of humor and a lot of music and a lot of love.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody the other day, Susie, about the trailer for the film, which is so just powerful, impactful, which I think is absolutely, and I think that's what you want, right, from a trailer. But I said, and I don't mean this in any way other than what I'm trying to convey is everybody is Susie's mom.
Yeah.
Everybody is Susie's mom. And that's why, you know, everybody needs to see this film. They need to take attention to it and really understand this isn't unique to Susie and her mom. This could be any one of our family members. And that's why it's so important that we get this film out there for everybody to see.
Or us. It's us. It's our future.
Or us, yes.
It's our future.
Yes.
Also, one other thing I wanted to talk about is that you know a lot about Medicare and Medicaid, and I have a part of that I talk about in the documentary and I've asked everyone that we interviewed, can you describe what Medicare is? Can you describe what Medicaid is? And every single answer from experts was different because it's that complicated.
It's very complicated.
So complicated that it is so hard to navigate that whole CMS system, and when you're in a crisis mode, you know, like whether your parent is going through what my parent went through last year, or just dementia in general, or just need someone coming out of a hospital and needs a bed. Well, you're in a crisis mode because that has to happen like right away, but we don't know. We as a public are so uneducated in this CMS the systems that are, you know, that we just don't know, and it's also so confusing. So I don't know, you know, I encourage you. I know that would be another interview, like that would take a whole interview with you, but it sounds like you really have knowledge of this, and I think that people are missing and don't understand it enough because, you know, even when you said that, I know just from my research that yes, Medicare doesn't cover home care, but it could, depending on where you're at in your home care. Are you in hospice in home care? Where are you in your home care? Am I correct?
So, kind of, sort of,
okay.
yes.
See, it's confusing.
Yeah. So hospice is completely paid for through Medicare.
Right.
There's no cost to the family. It probably would be another interview, so I'll try to kind of summarize very, you know, sound bites for you. But Medicaid varies state to state. Medicaid is ran by the state. Medicare is ran by the national federal government. Every state is different. Medicaid is for poverty level, essentially. But let's say, I'll use my father as an example. He didn't get Medicare because he had a federal job. But he got really good insurance because he didn't get Medicare. It's kind of a trade-off. He had a very, very generous pension, and when it got to the point where he no longer could safely stay in our home due to the care he required, which is IV antibiotics every 8 hours, things like that, he had to go in a facility. That was never a choice. It wasn't voluntary. There was no decision to be made. It was something that had to be done. He ended up having to do a complete spin down of all of his money in order to then qualify for Medicaid. And unfortunately, because he was now on Medicaid and he was not going to be coming out of the facility, he got to live on $60 a month.
Right.
Because that's the Medicaid guidelines at that time for Michigan. Medicare, he got 21 days in a nursing home / rehab, long-term care facility, however you want to call it, because they kind of changed their names a little bit to get away from that nursing home stigma. But they're essentially the same thing. Some, if you have supplements, you can get up to 100 days. But they also look at the timeline. It's not, okay, I'm in here for 100 days, I'm going to go home, go in the hospital. You have to be in the hospital 72 hours to then qualify to go back into a facility for Medicare to cover it. If you still have Medicare days left, they will look back over this timeline, this period of time, and if you've already used up those days, Medicare's not going to pay. Just like you get so many rehab visits, you get so many this and so many that. And a lot of families aren't even aware that they could get what's called home health care. So you have home hospice, you have home health care, and you have home care. Home care is the one not covered by any sort of health insurance or Medicare. That's your support staff, your activities of daily living, bathing, grooming, toileting, dressing, things like that. Home health care, Susie, we'll use you. Let's say you're in the hospital, you're on Medicare, and you don't want to go in a rehab facility because you just had a hip replacement, you want to go home. Well, you can get an order for home health care. They will come, the nurse, physical therapist will come to your house. Usually it's a nurse will come, they'll be like your case manager. You get 9 weeks at a time. You had to be in the hospital for 72 hours, and you can go and then go into a rehab, or you can decide, you know what, I don't want rehab, I want to go home, have home health care. Okay. Home health care can continue 9 weeks at a time, then the physician can recertify it and get another 9 weeks and continue going like that. However, that's only if you're still in need of these skilled services. So if the nurse says, I don't think Susie really needs any more physical therapy, they're going to have a goal or a target for what the data or analytics say that is the best they're going to get you to. Even if they get you to that point, they're stopping their visits. Even if you want to still come and you still want more physical therapy, they're saying, we got Susie as good as we can get her. There's no more improvement that can be made because they have to justify, billing Medicare and having you come out for it.
Right.
And then hospice, hospice would take over all of your care. And, admission is voluntary. You can discharge yourself. I know, like with my father, when he went in the hospice, he became severely dehydrated. The hospice provider that we had, they believed in doing hydration. So he could get fluid IVs just for hydration purposes, not antibiotics. And that's the thing I want to stress here. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Different hospices have different ideologies or different philosophies in what they will provide. And Don's shaking, he knows. So ask those questions.
That's so much a big part of the documentary is that, we've asked how many people what the definition of hospice is, and there is not even close to being a single answer. I mean, and it's so confusing. Right. And you ask
hospice versus palliative.
And it's just
another thing,
well,
like
there's
what
no way to
covers
know.
what they. Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah. Palliative is becoming a little more popular, at least here in our area. And, sometimes families think, well, I don't want mom, I don't want my spouse, whoever it is, I don't want to go in the hospice because they think it's impending immediate death.
Right.
Okay. It doesn't always mean that. Their job is to make sure the person is out of pain and comfortable for something they do not expect nor plan to treat or cure. Palliative, you'll get a little more services. There's a lot more options for care. But again, it's voluntary. We had a lady, she was in hospice and she cut herself really, really badly. She was going to need antibiotics, all these different things. She discharged herself from hospice, went to the hospital, got treatment, and got that taken care of, then came home and got readmitted into hospice. But again, hospice is just like home care, Susie and Don. Michigan's a non-licensed state for home care. Michigan is a non-licensed state for home care. There is no state oversight into the home care industry in Michigan. I could hire Don to go in and take care of somebody. Don may have not a clue of what to do or how to do it, but there's nothing preventing us from doing that. Illinois, on the other hand, they are a licensed state, so it is regulated through the Department of Health and Human Services. I'm a big proponent, we're all a big proponent of the state of Michigan, because we're not the only state either. I want to stress that. But I'm just worried about our state. I'm a big proponent of our state becoming a licensed state, but then you're getting into politics, legislation, and stuff way out of my pay grade. But families get taken advantage of in that too, because they'll hire somebody, think they're a company, and it's really two sisters or two cousins or two best friends who are just saying we're a company because they can. But then it's like, do they have the credentials? Do they have the training? What happens if one of the people gets sick? Do they have somebody else to come and be there because you have to be at work in the morning and you can't leave your dad alone? Then you get into insurance, workman's comp, and all the other assets that a true company would have, and background checks and everything else.
But this is actually the fear of my fear for the future with this, the exponential growth of our seniors, where we're basically creating a COVID-like situation, because there's not going to be the infrastructure, and as in COVID, all the regulations went out the door. Even the states that had regulations, CNAs were, anybody could be a CNA. There was no training that was required. There was nothing. All bets were off. It was like, as long as they could get bodies in there, they were happy. And so that's why so many more tragedies happened, because there were a lot of, the majority, and I'm not exaggerating, the majority of frontline workers were not, they were not qualified to be there. And that's what's going to happen, because we're not going to have enough infrastructure. And so it's going to be, it's the Wild West. It's scary. It's the Wild West. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, wow, we could just talk for like 12 more hours. We could go
I wanted to ask you. I know you.
Yeah,
I know you were just honored recently. I know with the number 50 in it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so I have trouble talking about myself, but we found out about 2 weeks ago. Actually, it was announced about 2 weeks ago, and we found out back in January that I had been chosen as a 50 under 50 for 2023, something I was extremely proud of. And, it's a great honor. And we had posted our team on social media because I didn't want to make it about me whatsoever. And my philosophy with that, Don, and my perspective is, I think all of us, Susie, you, Rick, I saw you guys had Bettina on recently.
I love her.
Everybody in this, she's amazing. Yeah. Everybody in this field, to me, though, is the 50 under 50, because we're all trying to help and we're all trying to make a difference. I don't feel like anything I've done is any different than what anyone else is doing. But it was quite an honor and quite a surprise that, I'm pretty proud of.
Oh, you should be proud of it.
Congratulations.
You should,
Absolutely.
And you should brag about
well.
it. And it's like Rick Moncastle, when I first met him, he was like, I have this 15 minutes of fame, and I never thought I would have 15 minutes of fame. And I said, well, then wear it, but you do it, work it, baby, because you know what? It's important, and that gives you a tool that gives you a little power, and that's important, and that's. It's like we were our podcast, our little tiny podcast that we started in December of 2019, and in June of 2020, we get chosen best podcast out of not expecting it, not thinking, not. And it was more like, wow, people are listening to us. People like it. We're doing a good thing.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
so that's how you have to
Absolutely.
look at it. And, and the same with our awards for My Mom and the Girl. It was like, is it not? Yeah, of course it's nice. It makes you feel good. But more than anything, it really gives us a tool and some credibility in the field that I want to have credibility in. So I think that's it's an honor, but it's also, it gives it it was well given to you because
thank you.
you have the infrastructure to use it. So yeah, you should be proud, and we're proud to know you.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you,
we're
Susie.
proud to
Feelings
know you.
mutual.
Yeah, and so happy that you are in our sphere, and we hope to be continued this conversation because
Absolutely.
a lot to talk about with you, and listen, our audience. I know that if you haven't met this man, you will follow them now because so much great information, such a big heart. Such a throwback to a time, like you just give such a sense of comfort that is so needed in all the tumult that's out there. So follow all of your things, which will be in our show notes.
Put them in
for
our
sure.
notes.
There's too many to say right now. There's so many, my friends, to follow Lance and his team. And so much, great information and resource. And we thank you for sharing your time with us a lot.
Thank you for the privilege. Yeah, absolutely.
Really do. Anything else, Don, you want to
Appreciate
say?
it. All right. I don't have anything else to say. Lance, was there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to say, or are we done?
I just want to say thank you to you and Susie. I just want to say thank you again to you and Susie for the incredible work. I've just grown to love Susie and admire everything you guys are doing with this film. And anytime, anywhere we can do anything to help get the word out more, just let us know. We're happy to do so.
Love
We
you
appreciate
too.
that.
Thank
Thank you,
so
and
much.
vice versa.
And,
You're welcome.
yeah. All right, everybody.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk to you soon. And
Bye.
we'll hang up
Take
now.
care, Lance.
Thanks, you guys.
Wow. That's all I can say is wow.
That is a wow.
My gosh.
That's a lot.
I thought that we did a lot, and frankly, I'm a little bit feeling inept. I feel like we need to
Inadequate?
yeah, I feel like we need to up our game here a little bit, Don. I don't think we're doing
no.
enough.
No, we're doing enough. Dang
don't
you,
know.
Lance. Oh,
But
man.
my
No, he's
gosh,
amazing.
my gosh.
Amazing.
I know. Well, I hope that there was so much to touch on in this episode. I felt like we were jumping around like we were on some kind of relay race. Like I wanted to get it all in, but
Yeah.
clearly there wasn't enough time to get it all in because he's just a plethora of great information. I'd love to get him back on the show to talk about Medicare in more in depth because it's such a confusing topic. I mean, even after what he tried to explain today, I'm still confused. Are you?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. It was just kind of those, well, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I mean, okay, I get that little
Yeah.
moment, but wait, what about this? And then it changes from state to state with Medicaid, and it's just
From state to
the
state.
combination is just, yeah, it's insane. But
It's daunting. It's daunting. I'm glad that we just talk about Alzheimer's and dementia.
yeah, it's so much easier, less complicated.
Yeah, easy breezy.
No problem. Yeah, but no, and I just like his spirit too. I like his spirit. I like the, he's just got a great sense of person and of just a
Yeah,
human
he's very
being. so.
gentle and makes you feel very calm and cared for. And he's a very good buoy, as they say.
buoy, a
Not
Bowie.
Bowie. That would be David.
Yeah,
But this
and that's
is
not him.
Bowie. It's not him. He's not David Bowie. This is Lindsay Slatton, and but I feel like his story is not dissimilar to all of ours, which is that, his interest in this field in particular comes from his relationship to it personally. And like he said, which I relate to, is that when you're doing something that you love to do, it's not work. And, because people always say, Susie, can you please just sit down and rest and stop doing something for a second? And the fact is, it doesn't feel like work when you're doing something that you love. Right?
Yes. And you know why that is?
Why,
That's
Don?
because
Why is that?
That's because love is powerful, love is contagious, and love conquers all.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening and sharing. And don't forget to donate to our GoFundMe for No Country for Old People. And don't forget to come and listen to us again. Hey, this is Susie Singer Carter, and I just wanted to take a minute to talk to you about bed sores. I know, but if you're like I was, you probably don't have a clue what a bed sore really is. Most people don't. I mean, no one told me, and I really just assumed it was part of the body that was, like the name says, sore from laying in one position too long. And if you change the position, all better. Wrong. Bed sore is really a euphemism for more appropriate names, such as pressure wound and decubitus ulcer. Unfortunately, I discovered what a bed sore really was when my mom was admitted into the hospital last year with a stage 4 ulcer. That is the worst level. You don't ever want that to happen. Bed sores can develop quickly and worsen rapidly and can lead to serious health issues, even death, if they're not properly treated or properly treated, and that includes cleaning and dressing the wound, but most importantly, reducing pressure off the sore by frequently changing the position of the person off of their wound so it can heal. And that can mean propping the person up 30 degrees to the side, far enough to be off the lower back, but not too far as to be on the side hip where there isn't much cushion, right, between the skin and the bone. This is why I'm so excited to tell you about Bed Sore Rescue, which was designed by an amazing woman, Gwen Jewell, a nurse who was tired of fooling around with simple pillows and bulky wedges that just don't work. The Bed Sore Rescue positioning wedge cushions are uniquely designed to provide ergonomically correct and comfortable support for a sustained period of time without touching the sore. And the curvatures and bilateral angles make it possible for the bed sore cushion to be used to support many other body parts as well. You can float the heels, you can put it under the head, you can put it under the arms, behind the knees, both sides. You can even use it as a breakfast in bed table. The curvatures of the Bed Sore Rescue fit the curvatures of your person's body, and it's made to meet all the patient safeties and bed-bound positioning standards for acute and long-term care facilities. I wish I had it for my mom. I really do. So chances are, if you have a loved one in a long-term care facility or at your home, you may become a pressure injury soldier too. But bed sores should never get to stage 4. And one way to ensure that they don't is to make sure that as soon as one begins to develop, you keep the pressure off. You can do that easily with Bed Sore Rescue. And you can find Bed Sore Rescue and many other pressure solutions online at Jewell Nursing Solutions, home of the patented Bed Sore Rescue positioning wedge cushions, pads, and pillows. That's Jewell, Jewell, NursingSolutions.com. And when you use the special code NCFOP, the entire amount of your purchase will go to support our important documentary, No Country for Old People, which chronicles my mother's journey navigating the nursing home long-term care crisis that literally began with an unreported, untreated pressure wound. So take the pressure off yourself and your loved one with the Bed Sore Rescue.